Welcome, Eric.
Hi, Michael. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Great to have you here. Looking
Thank
forward
you.
to our conversation. And I thought where we could start off is today you are at Elixir. Prior to that, you spent time at PwC, at Infosys, most recently, where you also had roles focused on practice lead and business development.
Sure.
And I thought what we could maybe just begin with is what does good business development look like in your mind? Are there frameworks or principles that you focus on when you think about kind of the concept and area of business development itself?
Yeah, no, it's a complex topic. I mean, business development is if it were easy, everyone would do it and be successful at it. But I think to me, there's a lot of different components of it. I mean, you talk about like what is a market opportunity? What are your capabilities? How do they align? Where do you want to focus your efforts when you're talking about building a business? And in my mind, it's not about getting fancy and just trying to sell everything that a client mentions that they want, but it's really thinking about what are the things we're really good at, and
Mm,
and where do we like stand apart and have something to offer that others don't. And in the consulting world, I think that comes down to how you approach clients and what you mean to clients and what type of work you want to do with them. For me, it's always been about you know they have objectives as a business and they're hiring us to achieve those objectives. So how can we help them? And it's not about I have something I think they need and let me go push something on them and sell a product or a
mm,
canned offering. But it's more about they know their business better than I do. I'm never going to doubt that, but I do need to know about their business, and they will have challenges where the experiences I've had as a consultant will be applicable. So how can I take my understanding and quickly understand what they're trying to do, and then marry that up with what are the capabilities we're strong at. So these can be anything from a strategy to an operating model to a process transformation.
yeah.
It can involve capabilities like data and digital and the things that we see a lot of today as enabling technologies. And so if you come in with a toolkit of understanding of the business, a set of capabilities that you can bring to the table, and a framework under which to work. So how do I start? What do I do first? I really want to understand the problem they're trying to solve, make sure
Hmm.
we're working on the right thing, and then how do I bring something of value to that problem? And to me, it's a relationship, Michael. I mean, it's not. I'm purposely in the company I'm in today because we sell on relationships. We don't compete on RFPs and RFIs, and it's not about price. It's not about who has the most case studies. It's about can I build a relationship where the client trusts me
Yeah.
and will see me as a partner, not as a vendor, and that kind of thing. And that's how I like to develop businesses. And it takes time, right? It's of course going to be a journey, but you've got to have enough going at all times where you're not suddenly off the cliff. All my projects end, and I've got to now go spend a year developing business. It's a process of keeping a
Yeah.
pipe full and building big accounts to build off of.
So let me ask you, because you talked about the importance of identifying the problems, kind of what's top of mind for the buyer, right, the prospective client. So you're not just coming in saying this is what we have to offer, and therefore you need it. It's really that kind of customization
Yeah.
or making sure that it's relevant. And if I paint a very broad kind of two broad brushstrokes, I think there's two camps. There's the camp of people who believe that you need to spend a lot of time having deep, meaningful conversations with buyers to understand what problems they have and where the opportunity might lie. And then you have this other camp that believes it's less about asking questions initially and more about just saying, here's the data in the market. Here's what's going on. Here are the problems. Are you
Sure.
having these problems? And of course, they're asking questions, but one seems to lead more with a mindset of, let's just get in there, get our foot in the door, and then we're going to ask a lot of questions. The other seems to come in with a lot more. We've already done the homework. We know the industry. We know the data. Where do you kind of sit on that? What's your view of those
I
two?
mean, it's a really challenging topic because there's merits to both. I mean, you have to be relevant and you have to get in front of clients proactively. So you can't like expect like these conversations. They're going to give me 2 hours to sit and listen to them. So you have to really get your at bats and take advantage of them. So a lot of times, and we do both, and I do both. It's a lot of times of thinking about, what are the hot topics right now, and how do I find an opportunity to tell a client I have something to say about this topic. You should talk to me. But when I get that that moment, it's now I want to listen. What are they
Right.
saying? Because
Yeah.
is it really their interest in this topic, or is there something else underlying here that they're trying to achieve? And how do I translate that into an opportunity?
Yeah.
And you know, I like to look at it that way as I have to be. I always feel like we need to be ahead of our clients on what's happening, not necessarily their industry, but what's happening in the world with technology, data, all these things that are changing very fast now. And that's creating these opportunities for people. So if I can go talk about an opportunity with the client with a business slant on it, like what does this really mean to your customers or your experience or your business or your onboarding process or whatever it is. And if I can find clients to target that, that's relevant to them. So maybe it's somebody who leads account opening or customer service or, and then what are the 5 things they're going to be interested in? Can I get a meeting by saying something smart about that and getting them interested? And then really sitting and say, okay, before I dive in and tell you all about how great I am, tell me what your job and your role is and what are you doing? What's on your agenda?
Yeah.
And by listening, almost creating or co-creating the opportunities to go after with them.
Right.
And that's where I think the balance is.
So let me just try and summarize that for everybody and let me know if this is accurate or if I'm missing something. It sounds like what you're saying is you lead with, you've already collected the data. You understand the industry. You have, as you said, maybe a top 3 or 5 main points that are going to be relevant to that buyer. And that's what you use to get the meeting, kind of to hook them in. Once you actually sit down, that's where you're going to spend more time asking the questions to really understand the human, the person, before you just start talking about the problem. And then you're going to explore both the person and the problem. Okay.
Because I may not have the right understanding of the problem. They may not know the problem.
Right.
Right. So it's like by listening, you can kind of get to, are you sure that's what you're really telling me is, maybe it's something else we should go after. But I think, and doing it in a way that's collaborative, because I've been in that environment where it's, we're pushing sales and volume and, we're trying to sell the next deal. And there's something in the market that says, it's shooting fish in a barrel. So, everyone needs it. I'm going to get 5 out of 25 attempts. So I'm going to close something. That environment, I think, has come and gone. I mean, I think that was, when there was a lot of back office transformation projects with big software, that was happening a lot. But I think now, you really have to get someone's attention by saying something that I'm going to put in front of you now will help you achieve or exceed your goals and what you're trying to do as a business, and framing it that way so that they see it and they understand it. And, but again, like when I get a meeting with someone, whether, no matter what channel it comes in, and there's lots of channels, but I know who they are. I know what their role is. I know their business. I can find out things pretty quickly enough to say they are probably interested in these 3 or 4 topics. So let me at least, present something to them and says, hey, I'd like to get, I don't have time, or I'd like to get with you. Here's some things I think we could talk about. Is there anything else on your mind? And then once you get there, like I rarely will bring a lot of presentation material to an initial meeting. It's a conversation. And, that gets them comfortable that you're not just here to, sign a contract and leave, and you're actually going to be the person helping me. And the next thing I do, honestly, every time is I try to be helpful. First thing out of the first action, what can I do for this person? Send them, introduce them to somebody, send them an article or research paper, or even build something, a few slides for them to say, here's what I heard, and here's some things for you to think about. Not a proposal, not a price document, right? Now, that's an entry of a new relationship. Once you're in, it's very different. Now I know your business, right? Now I'm sitting, and again, our clients are senior level execs. So I know what's happening in your unit. I know what's happening, what your M&A strategy is. I know how you guys are, expanding or what new products you're going after. And then I can start to think about my experience of being in similar companies. What are the things that got them in the end? Or what are the things that actually were great ideas, or how did they go about it? And then you're looking at like, how can I be part of your team with that executive? How can I bring stuff to you, as a benefit of working with our firm? I will bring you ideas and things, and just that's basically free advice. But with the spirit of, we're going to be part of your growth plan.
So I want to talk, go a little bit deeper into kind of what you did early on at Elixir in the role of business development and really coming over from, so Elixir, a UK-based company, but your role is to really open up the US market, right? To expand into the US market. But before we do that, I want to go a little bit more into this idea of creating the at bats, as you call it, creating the opportunities to actually where somebody's going to say yes to an appointment and meeting. When you identify an ideal client, right, somebody that you want to do business with, right? So very clearly you're leading with the idea of, I'm going to build a relationship with this person before I even talk to them about how we can specifically help them, that's fantastic. But how do you get to the point where you think, here's the 3 or 5 things that I should put in front? Like, how do you go about, if you could just share that process of developing the hook, developing that initial outreach, that message that's going to get somebody to say, okay, Eric, yes, I'm going to carve out time to speak with you.
Let me just make it a bit of a broader answer than that. So the first most important thing is, who are you going to target, right? And I think and this has been a very, I had to reestablish and reinvent myself coming to Elixir, because in my prior firms, they were big consulting firms and well established. We had sales teams. Mm-hmm. I was a, here's a lead, go close it kind of a leader, right? And this is very different. So when I joined Elixir in 2016, so it's been 8 years or so, I was the only one in the U.S. Like, this was we had Elixir. I could, if I had done it on my own, I wouldn't have had the benefit of, we have Elixir and we do things, and I could take those ideas and build on them. But I had no team, no brand, nothing other than contacts and relationships. Right. And so, early days, it was about just exploring the market and getting out there and say, like, how do I figure out even who to sell to, for what type of role in an organization, what type of companies, what industries, and that's a process that you have to learn very fast, or you're going to fail, because you need clients. Right? And then once I have a success, how can I build on that by that client recommending me within their company or to their network or whatever. And so, there's the way I go about it and think about it is, you have all these channels, right? Their client relationships, their past relationships, their conferences, or, getting yourself out there on marketing platforms. There's all kinds of ways to do it, right? Partnerships, et cetera.
Sure.
And so you have all those channels, and you say, I'm going to keep these going until I realize it's not bringing me success, and I'm going to double down on another one. And then you start to learn the process of what the capabilities we have and the market trends and demands that are happening, whether it's across industry or within industry. Where is there a market for some of those things here that I can actually go after, based on who do I know and how does it line up with their company? And so you start to explore, and you realize, hey, we're really good and strong in, I'll just give an example, banking, retail banking. And there's a huge market in the U.S. of regional banks, and they're a good size to sell to, because they may not get the attention of the big consulting firms all the time. They're not Chase and Bank of America. And so that's a good opportunity space for me to go after. And once I start going after it, I realize a lot of them are doing data and insights driven work, right? And so I have a data capability. That's a good, who does data stuff, business leaders, CDOs, CIOs, et cetera. And then you hone in on, what is it about banking and data that there's a message around, or a topic around? Is it cross-selling? Is it customer service and, better experience? Is it onboarding efficiency? What are those things?
Yeah.
And then, do I have capabilities to do those things, right?
And Eric, do you usually learn that from the conversations that you're having as you reach out to those people? Or do you find that you get a lot of that kind of intel from reading?
It's you have to do your own work, but it's test and learn. There's nothing better than going out and having a conversation and realizing that didn't work, right? And versus be reading a bunch of stuff, because if you're not out in the market, you're not going to learn. And
100%.
I even from early in my career, I realized I made a decision to go out and get a job after my bachelor's degree, and I thought MBA down the road maybe. And I realized I'm learning more doing work in the field, doing an implementation in a refinery and seeing how a refinery works is a gold mine, way better than a textbook, right? And so that philosophy has always stuck with me, and you apply it in sales and business as well. If I don't get out and try, now I might try with a warm, friendly person and test something with someone I know first before I go try it with someone and lose a potential client forever.
Sure.
Right. Because I've offended them in some way. But but it's really, you have to learn, and you start to learn what works, and you learn the process you go through that works. And it's not the same for all of our partners sell differently. They all have different ways of doing it, but we're all selling similar themes and outcomes. And, like, why are we going to, why does our approach work better? We all sell that the same, but I might try to sell to a certain channel differently than somebody else has a different way of accessing clients, that we all have our ways that work for us. And that's what we do.
People often say that when an executive, a new CEO comes on board, or somebody, a leader in an organization, the first 90 days are critical, right?
I was going to say that. I was hoping for that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
New executive in a new firm is
And so I mean, that can often be a trigger, right, in terms of who to target, right? So as a consultant or firm owner, you might find the people that are new in roles. That can be a gold mine of opportunity. But let me shift the question a little bit. And, thinking about your experience now, I know it's been 8 years since you've been at Elixir, but if you were a consulting firm owner, and let's say you were new to go to market, you had expertise for maybe many years in the business, or maybe you've been consulting for a period of time, but you really want to take things to the next level, and you felt like, okay, I have 90 days to really make something work here. What would you do, or are there any lessons from what you've seen and what you did? Like, would you do anything differently from what you did back 8 years ago in those first 90 days? How would you approach that kind of critical period?
You're making the assumption that the first 90 days were successful. It's honestly, like getting attraction. I mean, again, that was a big reason why I joined Elixir, because there was a successful firm already running, and I could take some time to figure out what I'm going to do in this market and get help and advice from the people that had gone through it before me.
Sure.
It's not easy. And, the biggest thing that surprised me. So, I mean, I grew up in a big consulting firm and kind of advanced. And then my second opportunity that I pursued was a new consulting capability in a bigger IT services firm, which was different. Right. And that was a very different way to sell and, approach the market. When I came to Elixir for the first time, it was, this is now roll up your sleeves and get out in the market and make a market. Like, you've got to go be a market maker. And that meant, I had to be open to, I think I'm selling this today, but next week it might be a whole different idea because it's getting traction, right? And it might be a different type of client. And I might, I did oil and gas for 25 years, and I've done nothing but banking and insurance and, at Elixir. It's just, finding your way. But the first 90 days, again, I think the most important thing is, I very quickly have to get a grip on the market, the white space in the market. Why am I in existence today? What am I going to do and to position myself as something different, right? Mm-hmm. Because if I end up competing against known brands, we know what happens, right? And if I end up competing against people who can undercut me on a strategy project because they're going to get downstream work and I don't do that work, I know what happens. So you have your basic, the idea I have, just like any startup, the idea I have is go in the market, and this is a white space, and I'm going to figure it out in 2 weeks. Does it really work or not? And if it's not, I need to start saying, what part of it can I turn into something new and a new idea and go after that? So I almost would say, in this particular type of a business, that you must do what we preach to our clients, which is have a hypothesis and test and learn. And make no doubt about it, the most critical thing for us is you've got to start contributing numbers to the business, or, it doesn't last long.
Yeah. You talked about, different clients, different industry, different sectors that you've worked in, and also the importance of going out there, kind of validating the market, having conversations, having maybe a hypothesis or some assumptions, but being willing to adjust based on what you see in the market. And I'm wondering, what lessons have you learned about kind of ideal client selection? Yeah. What stands out for you? Like, maybe just even taking some stories.
I'll give you some, there's some examples. And I mean, one of the tenets is an executive, an experienced executive in a new firm, that's a category, right?
Right.
We call it the middle market America, but I mean, honestly, these are massive companies, right? They have lots of money, but there's this underserved market of, you take mid-market energy companies. There's lots of them. public
Mm-hmm.
utilities, there regional banks, you know, 1 billion to 4 billion companies. There's lots of them out there. And if you find the ones that are growing, and you can see it growing, you can see their valuation growing, you can see their revenue growing, you can see their services kind of growing, you can see them becoming more prevalent. And those are the guys that they're running their business probably like they were when they were 500 million. And they need operational help. They need op models. They need to really understand digital and the relationship with their customers and their people, their employees and users.
Mm-hmm.
Like how do they run their business? How do they run their supply chain with digital? Those are the kind of things that I look for and say, like, these are, and like when you're looking at stuff like that, it doesn't really, to me, like those early days, I wasn't so worried about the industry. I was more worried about the type of common problems they are all going through.
Right.
Like, COVID was a new set of problems. Like a lot
Sure.
of companies had a new set of problems to deal with. So it wasn't like I'm just going to be a niche in this industry. It was, I'm going to look at the space of revenue growth and innovation and cost optimization and efficiency, two very big buckets. Now, what within those, how does digital and data play in those? How does innovation, how do you create innovative ways of working when
Yeah.
you're solving problems in each space? What does the question I always, what does good look like in an op model for, this type of business, for a B2B
Mm-hmm.
business? How can you take a sales prospecting process and lean it down to minimal time so you can spend all your time closing deals? Like those are the kind of things that, you think about these problems and you target them at the sales organization in any B2B company. It doesn't have to be this industry. Right. And
Is there anything that's, yeah, is there anything that, knowing what you know now, you would do differently, with the benefit of hindsight in terms of how you go about selecting who to focus on?
My biggest learning coming over to this type of a consulting business was I had to shake my years of experience of you're selling templated solutions to the market, and you just got to go out there and like say like you need this, right? And I really learned like that relationship, trust, really understanding your client. That it's almost like intimacy. Like I'm giving you the feeling that I care about your business, and
Mm-hmm.
and I do because it's fun, and like it's interesting, and I want to be a partner in your success. And if your outcome is what I care about, then you're going to trust me, and you're going to know I'm going to be there. And even if we hit a problem, I'm going to be there to solve it. And so what I learned, and that's not to say I didn't have that that feeling way back then, but it was much easier to sell in a bigger firm because you were just getting stuff served up to you. This was different, and so what I learned about that was I may have had a relationship with a client in a big company for 20 years. They're not my buyer because they're still in the organization that buys from the big guys, and they're not going to get fired over hiring me, right? I have to go out and find new customers and new clients. And what I found was, a lot of people will say like when they're growing up to this, more levels in their career where they're responsible for revenue and building and growing a business, they will say, well, but I don't have a network. Like I don't have a black book of executives to sell to. And the moment you challenge them and say, and I learned this very quickly, it's the people that you see every day that you go meet for drinks, that are your friends, that your family events, your uncles and aunts. They're probably executives in some firm somewhere. Find out what they do. Talk to them. Like really have discussions about what do you do and what are you excited about where your company's doing, and learn from that. And then like I'm not saying sell to them, but like learn from them, and then take those ideas and go think about it. Like, is there an opportunity in the market for that? You have to find the market opportunity.
Yeah.
And the other thing I learned was it's going to change every 3 months, right? Like in today's environment, like if I don't keep current on what's happening with especially technology and innovation, I'm going to miss a window. Like I have to constantly be knowing, and things come and go. Like, you think about the discussions a year and a half ago where blockchain and, crypto. And I mean, that's kind of like disappeared, and people are now talking about other things, AI and
Right.
ML, and right.
Sure.
So you have to like really think about, what is the topic people are talking about? And for a while it was ESG. For a while, it was return to work and return to office. What do I do with all this space? That's going to constantly change. So you have to think about, I have a set of capabilities that can be applied to any type of problem. I just need to understand the problem. And you start to find those nuances in every problem has a similar thing, which is, getting a piece of information from one point to another point faster or whatever it is, taking a lot of data and giving insights. And I think if you can work with like that framework and then be smart and be clever on how to apply it, then you'll have success.
Focusing on relationships kind of by default or definition usually means slower, right? You're giving yourself more time. It's more that long-term mindset. You're not rushing, right? You're not trying to persuade or push. What are you seeing right now kind of in the markets that you work in? What is the length of that typical sales cycle from initial conversation to actually sign on the dotted line? What does that look like today?
I mean, of course, the answer I'll give you is it depends, but
sure.
But no, I can give you some
a range,
thoughts.
Yeah.
What's that?
A range, maybe, of what you're saying.
No, it could be. Typically, it's in a really, really fast cycle. It's 2-3 months, and in a typical cycle, it's probably a year of investment. But I will tell you this: I learned this from actually doing consulting. We used to do these big transformation change projects, and the biggest failure point was always we got to the end, and then we rolled it out to people, and they weren't ready for it, right? And it's the same thing. I always would have said, if we would have got them ready before and made that investment, it would have cost more in the first phase, but we wouldn't have all this problem in the back end. It's the same thing with sales. So I can spend a year like really developing a good relationship with the business and a client and proving myself. Like maybe I invest a project for them, or maybe I do something at an investment price or whatever. But what that is building for me is I'm reducing and eliminating my future sales costs. I've got a client now that's buying for me on a capacity model, and I don't even have to really like go sell anymore. Like I just sign a contract every year and they just do call offs from it. What does that save me? Like that's business I have. I don't have to go do another year to get that business. That's how I build, right?
Right.
So at all times, I do have these 5, 6, 7 conversations that are going to take 6 months, and I know that, and I have to be patient with it and find the one thing that's okay. Now let's do something. But I've also got this existing business, and the hard thing about starting a company or a market is getting that kind of platform and starting to have that foundation to build on.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in my assumption would be that in your position where the business is already exists, there's already cash flow coming in, you're in a position where you can take a little bit longer. Of course, you have to deliver, I'm sure, showing progress and results, and you're going in the right direction. But the paycheck is coming in while you're doing that. For somebody who is maybe running a much smaller firm, they need to find ways to bring business in sooner. What advice might you have for somebody who is in a position like that?
It's a great question. And to be clear, like we run a profitable growing company. So it is very important to bring results in early on. So it's not any different than what you're explaining. But, I think what you have to be willing to do and really get your head around is, number one, this is not easy. Number two, you've got to be willing to sell what you can sell. And that's like, I might have a vision of like, I want to be the best AI company in the world. But if I can sell a data strategy project to that client because they know I'm smart about data, I've got to do that to get my revenue coming in and to have that opportunity to kind of grow my business with that client. So you have to be willing to kind of pivot quickly into where is my fastest path to revenue coming in. And, I mean, I hope people are learning now with what's happened the past few years that not everyone can have a startup. Like you really need to earn your right to do that. And it's not easy. I mean, it's very difficult. Right. And so that, my advice to people just starting off on this journey would be get your experience, like take your cycles and really learn from people who are doing it and doing it successfully, and then start to try to do it. But there's so many people that see it and, I want to do that. I want to be a founder. And then they realize like, oh, the investment that my, friends gave me runs out in 3 months.
It takes work. That's for sure. I wanted to ask you about differentiation. You mentioned maybe a couple of times earlier in the conversation about kind of, finding where you fit in the market. And I think Elixir today, maybe does roughly about 100 million or maybe over 100 million US dollar equivalent, give or take. Because am I in the ballpark?
Yeah, Barbara.
Okay.
I mean, it's public data, so we're
okay. We're somewhere around that. From what I saw, that was public information, and I'm just going from
that's
pounds into US dollars. So if we compare that, let's say, to a McKinsey, right? That's about 1/10, give or take, what McKinsey is. So Elixir is still a very established company, right, in terms of revenue size, but still much smaller than some of these very large organizations, let's say, like McKinsey. So when you think about going to market and you think, winning business, is it focusing on the companies that aren't going to be going to the likes of McKinsey so walk us through that, because I think there's obviously a lot of consulting firms. There's a lot of firms that provide, strategy advice and advice on AI and data and innovation. So that by itself isn't unique. And what I'm interested in is, like, what do you focus on to bring out the unique aspect, the advantage that your company has? How do you communicate that?
That's a challenge, and I think, and it does, even in Elixir, it varies by market. Like, how do we position ourselves in Europe and UK might be different than here, but generally speaking, I'm not looking to avoid accounts where McKinsey has a relationship. I'm looking to say, what can I do? I mean, we pride ourselves in being better than. I mean, that's what we're striving for, right? But I've done a lot of projects alongside or in the same ballpark or in the same client as some of those names, and what I think. The niche that we found in the U.S. when we started having success here, 8 years ago, was there are a couple things that people aren't doing well or that clients are getting frustrated with. So if you take a topic like innovation or even AI or something, like, you can have a strategy and you can talk about a strategy, but who is out there actually having a very brief discussion about strategy to understand, like, what is your business really trying to do? And then saying, here's an application in your business that we can actually prove out to understand what the strategy should really be, right? Like, let's do something. And it's that, like, breaking down a big, broad strategy of where do I want to be in 10 years to what are the problems I need to solve? What is my strategy to solve that? What are the enabling tools? And prove it to me. Like, show me the results. So I call it almost, strategy through outcome or strategy through execution. Get it done. Execute and get me an outcome, and then show me what worked and didn't work in terms of what you said the strategy should be, and let's modify the strategy and do the next one. And so I think it was, that talking about, like, let's do something with clients instead of, like, because they're getting tired of hearing about it, right?
Right.
And so let's do something and let's help you get the support internally and the funding you need to actually do what your vision is. Or to deliver what you've committed to, your stakeholders or your clients or your customers. And I think by having that attitude of, like, we're in this with you. Like, if the outcome's not there, we're going to keep working until it is there. We're going to figure it out. And if we're both wrong, at least you did it for 100K or 150K in 6 weeks, and not, I did a whole year strategy for you and gave you some ideas. And by the way, we missed the boat on that. And you spent a lot of money on me. So I think that was one thing is, that, like, that attitude of, we're entrepreneurs, you're an entrepreneur in your role in the company. You're trying to do something and achieve some goal, and you have ideas, and you need to, like, be creative and innovative about how you get them to market. And I'm in this with you. Like, this is our thing. Let's go do this.
That makes a lot of sense.
That was kind of the thing that got people like, oh, this is refreshing. You guys are actually going to do something. And, oh, wow, you have relationships that can do it faster. That's great, And I think that kind of speed, quality, outcome was what got us some traction. Now, the other important thing was we built very quickly on it. We showcased it. And then we said, like, okay, we'll do this with you as an investment, but we want you to make some intros for us or those kind of things. And that's how we kind of built momentum around getting noticed and getting some at bats and getting, our story right. And how do we message things and how do we have success on selling?
I want to also touch on cultural differences or potential cultural differences. So, I mean, you've worked with companies that are based in different places around the world.
Sure.
today your role is in the focus on the U.S. market, and as you said, 8 years ago you opened up the U.S. market for Elixir. What have you found? Anything that kind of stands out to you in terms of the difference of how different countries, different places think about consulting and how consulting work is done? And you can go broader in terms of strategy, but just anything that kind of stands out, like, oh yeah, they're really different here because we have a global audience. So I just want to kind of have you share anything that stands out for you.
Just a little bit of probably new context. So we are shifting to, I mean, we're evolving all the time. So we're kind of moving now to from a GTM approach and go to market, like we are. It's like I've taken on some leadership roles globally for industry now. So we're kind of shifting to that because we see opportunity, right? Like opportunity is what drives us. Right? We see, that one market can learn from another market. And so if we can bring ideas across markets, that's a good way to expand and grow a business. So these are things we try all the time, and we're experimenting with it now and kind of moving into it. But back to your point, the cultural differences. One very important thing that I saw is, so there is an importance. I mean, like being able to execute, depending on how far you go in the value chain of services. If you're doing, repetitive, intensive work, and you can do it at a better cost location in a time zone that works, in a language that works, then absolutely you should go after those kind of things. I mean, but I think one thing that I felt very strongly about when I made this decision to change jobs into this, it was the market today, what people are buying and what they really want help with, these kind of like experience, digital proposition development, those kind of things, they're very short, sharp kind of like opportunities, right? You have to get out there and get it done. That's hard to do with a team in a different place. Mm-hmm. It's much easier to do with people who have experience in a similar context environment, whether that's industry or process or business model or whatever it is. But if you can sit and be face to face and really think about together and whiteboard and do things on the fly in an agile manner, that model is different. That's small teams, sprints, and I think that is I don't know if that's a cultural difference or if it's a shift in the way consulting in general is consumed by companies. But I think I believe that's what the opportunity is now and what clients are interested in. And, there are still big projects and big, implementation programs and those kind of things. But I think the real win for what we're trying to do is we need to be mobilized to get to where our clients are quickly with an understanding of not only this culture and business culture in the U.S., but what can I learn from others who have advanced far beyond where we are? And some of you'd be surprised, like in some cases, there are countries way less developed than ours that actually are way beyond us in a certain area, like a certain concept that they've implemented. So, being able to actually bring those ideas around the world, I think is important too. So like we will constantly change the way we're going to market, the way we're structured based on where's the next opportunity for us to grow. And that changes again very fast. It can be every couple of months, right?
Yeah.
So, and as a small company, you can do that. You can't do it forever, but we can do it how we are now.
Definitely. So Eric, I want to be conscious of time that we have and respect that. I want to thank you for coming on, sharing, just a bit of your journey. I know there's a lot to unpack and a lot more that we could go much deeper into. But I want to make sure that people can learn more about you, about Elixir, everything you have going on. I saw some great case studies and examples on the website.
Sure.
So where's the best place for people to go and learn more?
I think our website's fantastic. I mean, it's really the best place to kind of get started and see what we do. And there's all kinds of ways to get in touch with us through that. So I would say if people want to learn more, elixir.com, and that's ELIXIRR.
Yeah.
And start there and poke around and look at the work we do and the clients we work with. And you could even meet the people, and there's videos of all of us on there and kind of hear. I think it's interesting to hear what we're about, what our goals and objectives are. And if that drives some interest, reach out, contact us.
Sounds good. We will link all that up in the show notes.
Awesome.
Eric, again, thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks, Michael. Enjoyed it. Good meeting you.